In this course, we're going to be going over AI agents. So this has been a highly requested course. Obviously, AI agents are a huge, huge deal and are probably only going to continue to increase in popularity, increase in usefulness. I think that as kind of the AI roadmap plays out over the next couple years here, these things are going to become kind of just standard practice. Everybody's going to have their own agents. They're going to help you do your work, all that kind of stuff. So in this course, we are going to go over from scratch kind of the entire toolkit that you need to know, that you need to have an understanding on, all the different skills that you need to know so that you can actually build your own agents and make them do useful things for you, okay? So the goal is to learn the entire stack of AI agents and allow you to, if you want to build something like a customer support assistant, you can build that. You have a personal research assistant, you want to build that. Maybe you're a developer and you want to build your own custom, coding agent, things like that. So we're going to kind of go over all of these different things. So to start here, I want to talk just at a really, really high level, effectively, why we want agents, what an AI agent is, and how they can be useful to us. So most of your work is actually quite simple. It's you have a request, and based on that request, you want to have an end goal. So in this particular scenario, again, we're just going to keep this super simple here. But the very core idea is, say I have somebody on my team and I need something done. What I do, right, is maybe you have a meeting with them, maybe you give them a call, maybe you send them an email, whatever the way you communicate with them is you give them a request, right? You're in a way you're almost prompt engineering that human so that they can go and do a bunch of stuff. Okay, so this arrow right here is every single thing that they need to do to actually get the goal done, and the end result is hopefully that they accomplish the task, right? So you talk to your team member, you give them a request, they go do a bunch of stuff, and out pops this goal, right? That's the ideal flow. So, that applies to everything from, asking one of your family members to help you out with something. You're having one of your employees go do, a business critical task. Even down to, if you're ordering lunch on DoorDash or something, right? You're giving them a request, a bunch of stuff's happening, and you end up with the goal, right? And so where AI agents come into this is we're basically taking this arrow here, and instead of having a human do all of the work here, we're trying to have an AI do the work there. And that is where we move over to this diagram. So you can see here, this is very simplified here. There are a lot of different moving parts. For some people, diagrams are helpful. For some, they're not super helpful. But I think this is simplified enough to kind of at least break down how we're going to be approaching agents in this particular course. So you can see what I've done here is we still have our request, we still have our goal, but instead of just this arrow where we're kind of waving our magic wand and saying a human's going to go do this, what we have here is we sort of have all of these steps in the middle here where the AI is kind of going and using a bunch of different things to try and do the work. And hopefully in an ideal world, you kind of take all of this right here and you insert that into there without dropping, any quality of work, without, expenses, without this being way more expensive than having a human do it, all that kind of thing. So obviously it's early for AI agents. As we continue to see these models get better and better, we see, some of these AI developer platforms kind of increase the functionality that they have available to them, right? You can kind of combine all of these different things and project that, okay, over time, right, cost is going to go down, usefulness, if we say that's usefulness is going to go up, right? All that kind of stuff. So let's actually look for a sec here into what what's even going on here. So my favorite definition of an AI agent is Lillian Wang here. This is a researcher at OpenAI. Has this awesome definition that became quite popular last year. You can say I even have it bookmarked from last year, where an agent is equal to an LLM plus memory plus planning skills plus tool use. And I would add one more thing here, which is plus a loop. Okay, so you can loop through all these different things. And that's essentially the gist of what an AI agent is. And you can see here, we're calling an agent here in this box. This agent, which is the LLM, has access to memory, has access to tools, has access to some sort of a plan. And you can see it combines each one of these three pieces to perform some sort of a step. And then you can see we loop back. And the idea is, given a task, it's just going to keep executing all of these things over and over and over until it recognizes that it's accomplished the goal. And then that loop is going to stop and boom, you've hit your goal. So I'm going to have links to this post. So this is Lillian Wang's post from last year. I think it's one of the better write-ups on AI agents that I've personally read. I think it's worth perusing through. This is actually from June of 2023. So some of the details here are a little bit outdated, but the thing that I love about this particular post and how it explains agents is that all of kind of the core things that it talks about, a year plus later, everything here still stands. And what that tells me is that these are just core fundamental principles of what AI agents are. And these are things that I think that we can reliably predict are still going to be important in 1 year and 2 years and 5 years. So anything that we kind of are illustrating in this diagram, right? Kind of memory, tools, planning, and then sort of the looping mechanism here. These are all kind of addressed in this blog post. And I think it's kind of worth a read. You can see Lillian kind of brings up planning and memory and tool use and, has some diagrams here of her own that I think are quite helpful. But the point is that no matter, how you want to quibble on the exact definition of an agent, this is really the core of what it is, right? You're basically trying to take some sort of multi-step process and you're trying to turn that from something that you need a human to do to something that you can just kind of have an AI work iteratively with itself, all of its tools using its memory and its planning abilities, and it's just going to keep looping through all of those steps until it actually spits out what you want. Okay, so what we're going to do in this course is we're going to cover in different sections. We're going to be covering memory. Okay, so we're going to go over how do you give it both short-term memory, right? And for a lot of you, if you've worked with some of these AI APIs, it's essentially just its chat history, right? So this is all, short-term memory is a lot of just kind of like basic prompt engineering, things like that. We're going to get into long-term memory. So this is going to be a little bit more advanced. We're going to get into things like storing, content with embeddings in a SQL database, kind of in a vector store so that the agent has the ability to kind of set and retrieve its memories. And we could use some tricks around embeddings if you've heard about that kind of thing. So we'll get more into that. We'll go over tools, which is very important. Tools, allow the agents to actually take action in the real world, right? So if you ask an agent, say you have a weather agent or something and you ask it to get the weather, what's going to happen practically is that the agent has some sort of a get weather tool that based on the input that you give the LLM here, it's going to go, okay, cool, I can use this get weather tool. It's going to go fetch the weather based on some sort of code that you wrote, and then it's going to feed that back into itself, and then it's going to give you the answer, right? So we're going to talk about tools, right? And tools can be literally anything you want, any type of code that you can write that has parameters that you can pass into a function that does any kind of, anything at all. That's a tool. Okay, so tools are very broad. So you can see even in real time, it's like kind of difficult to even come up with a really solid definition just because they are so encompassing, which is good because that means you can make an AI agent pretty much do anything you want, which is pretty cool. We're going to get into planning, which is very important because at some point you need the agent to be able to, if it's given a really complex task, you need it to be able to break that down into smaller steps so that it can kind of run steps at the level that matches its core model's capabilities, right? You can't, if you ask, an agent in a single step to go like win you a game of chess or something, it's not going to be able to do that in one step. It's going to kind of break down. But if you can kind of break each turn into a step, then maybe you could build something like a chess playing agent, right? So planning is very important to help steer it both in the short term and keep it aligned and not kind of veering off to the side so that it actually stays on course. So planning is going to be something that we're going to want to address. We're going to address looping, right? So this is iteration, looping, you're going to hear different terms for this, but this is just describing the process of the agent can kind of keep recursively running over and over and over for as long as it wants, as long as it needs, whether that's, 2 or 3 turns, maybe it's running for an entire day, maybe it's running for a week, right? Who knows what kind of tool you're building. If you've heard of things like Auto GPT, for example, that's kind of one of the main selling points of a system like that, is that you're just giving an agent a goal and it's just kind of running infinitely until it actually accomplishes what it needs. So we're going to go over kind of all the things you need to know to get your agent to actually be able to engage in the looping and to be able to run steps over and over and over. Okay, so we'll cover that. We're going to cover a few things like multi-agent systems. So what happens if you don't want to just give a task to one agent, but what happens if you want to give, a team of agents a task, right? And you want to have them work collaboratively with each other, maybe passing off work to each other and things like that. So instead of having, a single agent, you have a handful, right? Maybe you have like 3 or 4 or 5 all collaborating together to try and accomplish a task much like you would see, in a real world team or something like that, which I think we can probably all agree that's, it makes sense to infer that if singular agents are going to be useful now and in the future, then we can probably assume that teams of agents are going to be able to do even more kind of powerful things. So we'll also kind of go over how to integrate these agents, right? We're going to need to go over how to build the systems, right? How to write the code to get one of these things running, but also how you can kind of go integrate that with a real world tool so that you can take any of these tools that you build, any of these agents that you could build, and you can actually apply these into your real, business and personal workflows. So we can make sure that we have your cover there. So we're going to be going over a lot in this course. It's going to be hopefully pretty easy to follow. We've tried to really kind of scope things down and build our way up so that each one of these pieces makes sense before we move on to the next one. There's obviously a ton of moving parts with agents, right? You can see some really complicated agent diagrams out there where there's all sorts of things going on and there's arrows pointing every which way and you've got dotted lines and you've got loops and right? It just gets a little overwhelming. So we're going to do our very best to kind of start slow, work our way up, and hopefully by the end of this thing, you have all of the knowledge that you need to go out into the real world and build useful agents. So let's go ahead and get started.